Forgotten flowers. The sunlight streamed through the curtains, casting golden patterns across Olivia's small bedroom. At 10 years old, she had learned to wake before her alarm, a necessary skill to avoid her stepmother Diane's irritated sighs about lazy children. Olivia quietly made her bed, smoothing the faded quilt her real mother had sewn years ago before cancer took her away. "Olivia, are you up yet? Your father needs his breakfast before work." Diane's voice echoed up the stairs. "Coming!" Olivia called back, quickly changing from her pajamas into a simple blue dress. Downstairs, her father, Robert, sat reading emails on his phone. He worked as a regional manager for a shipping company, which meant long hours and frequent business trips. When Olivia entered the kitchen, he looked up briefly, offering a distracted smile. "Morning, Pumpkin," he said, returning to his screen. Diane placed a bowl of cereal in front of Olivia with none of the care she'd shown while preparing Robert's elaborate omelet. "Eat quickly. We're all running late." Olivia nodded, spooning cereal into her mouth while trying to ignore the knot in her stomach. Today was her school's family day, where parents came to see art projects and performances. Her painting of the local park had won first place in her grade, but she already knew what Diane would say. "Robert, don't forget we have dinner with the Hendersons tonight," Diane reminded, touching her husband's shoulder with unexpected gentleness. "It could mean a promotion if you impress Mr. Henderson." "I remember," Robert nodded, finally putting his phone down. "Olivia, Diane will pick you up from school, but you'll need to stay quiet during dinner tonight." Adult conversation. "Actually," Olivia said hesitantly, "today is family day at school. My painting won the art contest. The ceremony is at 3. Diane's expression hardened. "We've discussed this, Olivia. Robert can't miss this dinner and I need to prepare for it. Maybe you could come for just a little while?" Olivia looked at her father hopefully. Robert glanced at Diane, then back at his daughter. "I'm sorry, Pumpkin. This promotion is important. We'll celebrate your painting another time." Olivia swallowed hard and nodded. She'd expected this answer, but had hoped for something different. At school, Olivia stood beside her painting, a watercolor of the park where her mother used to take her, while other children's parents took photos and offered congratulations to their children. Her teacher, Ms. Emma Bennett, approached with a kind smile. "Your painting is beautiful, Olivia. Is your family coming soon?" "They had important things today," Olivia replied, studying her shoes. Emma's face softened with understanding. In her 3 years as Olivia's teacher, she'd noticed the pattern. "Well, I think it's wonderful. Would you tell me about it?" As Olivia explained the meaning behind her painting, across town, Thomas Harrington was concluding a business meeting. At 42, Thomas had built Harrington Innovations from nothing into a technology company worth millions. Despite his success, something always felt missing in his carefully constructed life. "The Henderson contract is nearly finalized," his assistant informed him. "They're celebrating at Bellini's tonight." Thomas nodded, remembering the upscale Italian restaurant. "I should make an appearance." "Schedule it." That evening, as fate would have it, both Olivia's family and Thomas ended up at Bellini's. While Robert attempted to impress his potential employers, Diane maintained a charming facade that vanished whenever she addressed Olivia. "Sit up straight," she hissed under her breath. "And don't touch anything. You're only here because the sitter canceled." When Olivia accidentally knocked over her water glass, Diane's patience shattered. "This is why I can't take you anywhere." "You're not my daughter. I never would have raised such a clumsy, thoughtless child." Fighting tears, Olivia slipped away from the table, finding refuge on a bench in the restaurant's small garden area. That's where Thomas, stepping outside to take a phone call, found her, a small girl with tear-streaked cheeks, clutching a folded paper that appeared to be a certificate. "Hello there," he said gently, approaching slowly. "Is everything all right?" Olivia looked up, meeting the eyes of a stranger who, for some reason, seemed safe. "I'm fine," she whispered, though her trembling voice suggested otherwise. Thomas sat on the far end of the bench, giving her space. "You know, I come out here sometimes when grown-up dinners get too boring." "Is that why you're here?" A tiny smile flickered across Olivia's face. "Sort of." In that moment, neither knew how significantly their lives were about to change. Unexpected guardian. Thomas observed the folded certificate in Olivia's hand. Is that something special you've got there? Olivia hesitated before unfolding her art contest certificate. I won first place today, she said quietly. For my painting. First place? That's impressive, Thomas said, his interest genuine. May I see it? Olivia carefully handed him the certificate, along with a photo of her painting that her teacher had printed for her. Thomas studied the watercolor landscape with appreciation. This is beautiful. The way you've captured the light through the trees. That takes real talent. My mom taught me, Olivia said, a hint of pride breaking through her sadness. Before she got sick. Something in Thomas's expression shifted. A flicker of recognition, perhaps, or simply empathy. She taught you well. He handed the items back. I'm Thomas, by the way. I'm Olivia. Before they could continue, Diane's sharp voice cut through the evening air. Olivia, what are you doing bothering strangers? Get back inside immediately. Thomas stood as Diane approached, her pleasant dinner party facade nowhere in sight. Robert followed several steps behind, looking uncomfortable. She wasn't bothering me at all, Thomas said smoothly. We were discussing her artwork. I understand she won first place today. Diane's expression froze, suddenly recognizing Thomas. Harrington, whose name and face appeared regularly in business publications. Mr. Harrington, I had no idea. I'm Diane Walker, and this is my husband Robert. We're dining with Henderson Shipping tonight. Henderson? Good people, Thomas nodded, but his attention remained on Olivia. Your daughter has remarkable artistic talent. Oh, she's not, Diane began automatically. She's my daughter from my first marriage, Robert interjected quickly, placing a protective hand on Olivia's shoulder. My wife, Diane, is her stepmother. Thomas nodded, a subtle coldness entering his gaze as he looked at Diane. Well, congratulations on your award, Olivia. Perhaps your parents will frame your certificate somewhere special. The suggestion hung in the air like a challenge. Diane's smile tightened. Of course we will, Robert said, though his tone lacked conviction. We should get back to our guests. As they turned to leave, Thomas made a split-second decision. Mr. Walker, I'd actually like to speak with you about something. Business-related. He handed Robert his card. Would you mind calling my office? Tomorrow? I believe we might have an opportunity that would interest Henderson Shipping. Robert looked stunned. Absolutely, Mr. Harrington. Thank you. That night, Olivia lay in bed wondering about the kind stranger who had treated her artwork with such respect. She didn't know that across town, Thomas sat in his home office, searching online for information about Robert Walker and his family. The next morning, Emma Bennett was surprised to receive a call from the principal. Ms. Bennett, there's someone here asking about one of your students, Olivia Walker, a Mr. Harrington. He's inquiring about art programs and mentorship opportunities. Emma approached the administration office with curiosity. She recognized Thomas Harrington immediately. His company had donated computers to their school district last year. Mr. Harrington, I'm Emma Bennett, Olivia's teacher. Thomas stood to shake her hand. Thank you for meeting with me, Ms. Bennett. I encountered Olivia yesterday and was impressed by her artwork. I run a foundation that supports young artists, and I'd like to offer her a spot in our weekend program. Emma studied him carefully. In her 7 years of teaching, she'd developed a keen sense for people's motivations. That's very generous. May I ask why you're particularly interested in Olivia? Thomas appreciated her directness. Truthfully, I saw a child whose talent wasn't being celebrated at home. Sometimes all it takes is one person to change a life trajectory. I'd like to be that person for Olivia, if her parents agree, of course. Emma's expression softened. I've worried about Olivia for some time. Her home situation is complicated. I gathered that, Thomas replied. Which is why I'm here speaking with you first. I want to help, but appropriately and through proper channels. Over coffee in the school's empty cafeteria, Emma shared her observations of Olivia's situation, the consistently missed parent-teacher conferences, the quiet resignation in the girl's demeanor, her brilliant mind that seemed increasingly withdrawn. "Her father loves her," Emma explained, "but he's rarely present, and her stepmother—" "Makes it clear she's not her real daughter," Thomas finished, remembering Diane's almost spoken words. Emma nodded sadly. Exactly. Something in Emma's compassion struck Thomas. Unlike the sophisticated, ambitious women he typically encountered in his social circle, Emma radiated authentic warmth. Her simple dress and minimal makeup spoke of someone who prioritized substance over appearance. "I have resources that could help Olivia," Thomas said finally. "But I need allies who understand her daily life. Would you be willing to work with me on this?" Emma considered the unusual request. "My priority is Olivia's well-being. If you're sincere about helping her, then yes." That afternoon, Robert Walker called Thomas's office as suggested. By week's end, Henderson Shipping had a lucrative new contract with Harrington Innovations, with one unusual condition. Robert would manage the account personally, but with a schedule that allowed him to be home evenings and weekends. More surprisingly, Olivia received an official invitation to join the Harrington Young Artists program, a legitimate foundation Thomas had established years ago but now took sudden personal interest in. When Diane objected to the weekend commitment, Thomas made another unexpected appearance, this time at their home. "The program includes a substantial scholarship fund for college," he explained, watching Diane's expression shift calculatingly. "And participants' families receive invitations to our annual gala, excellent networking opportunities." Self-interest won out over objection. Olivia began attending the program each Saturday, with Emma volunteering as one of the instructors. Neither Diane nor Robert realized that Thomas and Emma were carefully, strategically becoming the stability Olivia desperately needed. Buried connections. The autumn leaves drifted across the cemetery path as Thomas laid flowers on Catherine Walker's grave. He'd waited until he was certain no one from the family would be visiting. 6 months had passed since he'd met Olivia, and the truth he'd been concealing weighed heavily on him. "I found her, Cat," he whispered to the marble headstone. "She has your talent, your eyes. I should have looked for her sooner." Thomas had known Catherine in college. Brilliant, vibrant Catherine who'd wanted to become an artist. They'd been deeply in love, planning a future together until his entrepreneurial ambitions pulled him overseas for what was supposed to be a temporary opportunity. When financial troubles struck his fledgling company, months of separation turned into years. By the time he returned, Catherine had married Robert. Believing Thomas had abandoned their relationship, they'd spoken only once afterward. A chance encounter at an art exhibition where she'd told him she was expecting a child. The pain had been too raw for Thomas to maintain any connection, and he'd thrown himself into building his company. "Mr. Harrington?" Thomas turned, startled, to find Emma Bennett standing a respectful distance away, holding a small bouquet of wildflowers. "Ms. Bennett, I didn't expect to see you here." Emma approached cautiously. "I come every month. Catherine was volunteering at the school when she got sick. We became friends during her treatment." She placed her flowers beside his. "How did you know her?" Thomas hesitated, then decided on honesty. "We were together in college. Before Robert," understanding dawned in Emma's eyes. "That's why you approached Olivia. You recognized her." "She has Catherine's exact expression when she concentrates on her painting," Thomas admitted. "I didn't know Catherine had died until I searched for information about Olivia's family. By then, I was already concerned about the girl's situation." Emma studied him with new insight. "Does Olivia know about your connection to her mother?" "No, and I'm not sure she should. My interest in helping her is genuine, regardless of the past." They walked together through the cemetery, sharing memories of Catherine. Emma described the brave woman battling cancer while still creating art with her daughter. Thomas spoke of the passionate young artist he'd fallen in love with decades earlier. "Robert changed after Catherine died," Emma explained. "He was devastated. Diane came into the picture about a year later. She was his company's event coordinator. The marriage seemed sudden to everyone, and Olivia became an inconvenient reminder of his previous life, Thomas concluded. Over the following weeks, as autumn deepened into winter, Thomas and Emma found themselves spending more time together outside the art program. What began as discussions about Olivia evolved into conversations about their own lives, hopes, and disappointments. Emma learned about Thomas's journey from struggling entrepreneur to successful businessman, and the emptiness he still felt despite his achievements. Thomas discovered Emma's dedication to teaching stemmed from her own childhood in foster care, where a single compassionate teacher had changed her life. At the Harrington Innovations holiday party, Thomas surprised his employees by arriving with Emma as his guest. She wore a simple emerald dress that contrasted with the flashy designer outfits favored by the women who typically surrounded him. "You look beautiful," he told her sincerely as they stood. Beneath the twinkling lights, Emma blushed. "This is quite different from school faculty parties." "Too ostentatious?" he asked, suddenly self-conscious about the elaborate event. "No," she smiled. "Just different. Though I notice you haven't touched any of the fancy hors d'oeuvres either." Thomas laughed. "Caught. There's a diner around the corner that makes incredible pie. Would you like to escape for a while?" In the cozy booth of the nearly empty diner, sharing cherry pie and coffee, they felt the pretenses fall away. When Thomas hesitantly reached for her hand across the table, Emma didn't pull away. Meanwhile, Olivia's situation at home grew increasingly tense. Her father's new work schedule meant he witnessed more of Diane's dismissive behavior, creating arguments between the couple. The art program had awakened something in Olivia, a confidence that Diane seemed determined to extinguish. "You think you're special now because some rich man noticed your little paintings?" Diane snapped one evening after Olivia mentioned an upcoming exhibition. "He's just being charitable. Nobody becomes a real artist, Olivia. It's time you learned that." Robert, overhearing from his home office, finally confronted his wife. "That's enough, Diane. I've overlooked too much for too long." The argument that followed was loud enough that Olivia covered her ears in her bedroom, trying not to hear the bitter words being exchanged below. Accusations about loveless marriages, financial dependencies, and children who reminded everyone of painful pasts. The next day, when Thomas arrived to pick up Olivia for the art program, he found her sitting on the front steps with a suitcase, her father standing protectively beside her. "Mr. Harrington," Robert said grimly, "I need to speak with you about a temporary arrangement for Olivia. I'm afraid things have become complicated at home." Shadows of rejection. The suitcase sat in Thomas's guest bedroom, a child-sized pink case with unicorn stickers partially obscured by scuff marks. Olivia stood beside it, her small frame rigid with the effort of not crying. "It's just for a little while," Thomas explained gently, "until your dad sorts things out at home." "Diane doesn't want me there," Olivia said, her voice flat with a certainty no 11-year-old should possess. She told Dad it's her or me. Thomas knelt to meet her eyes. "Sometimes adults make choices based on fear or anger, not love. But your father loves you very much. Then why did he bring me here instead of asking her to leave?" The question hung in the air, impossible to answer truthfully without hurting her further. In reality, Robert had explained his shameful dilemma. Diane had threatened to reveal financial improprieties at his company, mistakes made during his grief-stricken period after Catherine's death, unless he chose her. His temporary solution was entrusting Olivia to Thomas while he attempted to resolve the situation. "Your father is trying to protect you from a difficult adult situation," Thomas said carefully. "My home is your home for as long as you need it." After helping Olivia settle in, Thomas called Emma, who arrived within the hour. "This is inappropriate on so many levels," Emma said quietly, while Olivia unpacked in the other room. "You can't just take custody of a student, Thomas. There are legal protocols, child welfare considerations." "It was an emergency," Thomas explained. Robert was desperate. "He's afraid Diane might—" He trailed off, unwilling to voice his suspicions about Diane's potential for emotional cruelty. Emma's expression softened. I understand why you did it, but we need to formalize this arrangement through proper channels. I'll help you contact family services tomorrow. The following weeks brought a flurry of legal meetings and home assessments. Robert signed temporary guardianship papers, making Thomas and Emma, as a secondary guardian, legally responsible for Olivia while he worked through personal matters. The deliberately vague language concealed the ugly reality. Robert was essentially choosing his wife over his daughter, at least temporarily. For Olivia, the pain of this rejection competed with the unexpected comfort of her new living arrangement. Thomas converted a spare room into an art studio filled with professional quality supplies. Emma spent evenings helping with homework and weekends, introducing her to experiences Catherine would have wanted for her daughter. Museums, concerts, nature hikes. One evening, Thomas found Olivia sitting in the studio, staring at a family photograph. "Do you think my dad will ever want me back?" she asked without looking up. Thomas sat beside her, choosing his words carefully. "Your father loves you, Olivia. Sometimes adults make mistakes trying to solve grown-up problems. Like when you left my mom to start your company?" Thomas froze. "What?" Olivia finally looked at him. "I found pictures in Mom's old art portfolio. You were in them. There were letters, too." The revelation stunned him. "How long have you known?" "Since the second week I stayed here. I recognized your smile from the photos." Her directness was so like Catherine's it made his heart ache. "Were you my mom's boyfriend before my dad?" "Yes," Thomas admitted. "I loved your mother very much. We were together in college, but I made the mistake of putting my ambitions before our relationship. By the time I realized my error, she had moved on with your father." "Did you stay away because you didn't want to see her with someone else?" "Partly," Thomas acknowledged. "And partly because I was ashamed of my choices." Olivia considered this. "Is that why you're helping me?" "Because of my mom!" "That's how I recognized you at the restaurant," Thomas explained. "But I'm helping you because of who you are, Olivia. You're extraordinary in your own right." The conversation shifted something in their relationship, a new honesty that allowed Olivia to begin processing her complex feelings about her father's choices. Meanwhile, the relationship between Thomas and Emma deepened. What began as a partnership to help Olivia evolved into genuine love, cautious at first, then increasingly certain. Emma's practical compassion balanced Thomas's tendency toward grand gestures. His resources amplified her ability to make a difference in children's lives. Their growing closeness didn't go unnoticed by Olivia, who found unexpected healing in witnessing healthy adult affection. The three of them gradually formed a family unit that felt more natural than anything Olivia had experienced since her mother's death. But as winter melted into spring, Robert finally reappeared looking haggard and conflicted. "I've come to take Olivia home," he announced at Thomas's doorstep. "Diane and I have separated. I've realized what's truly important." The words should have brought relief, but instead sent shockwaves of anxiety through the newfound stability of Olivia's life. Healing hearts. The conference room at Thomas's office building felt oddly neutral ground for such a personal conversation. Robert sat across from Thomas and Emma, legal documents spread between them. Olivia waited in Thomas's office with his assistant, drawing in her sketchbook, a habit that still calmed her during stressful moments. "I appreciate everything you've done," Robert began, his voice strained. "But she's my daughter. I want her to come home." "What about Diane?" Emma asked carefully. Robert's expression hardened. "We're divorcing. I finally understood what I was sacrificing to maintain that marriage." He looked directly at Thomas. "I know about your history with Catherine. Diane told me, thinking it would make me suspicious of your motives with Olivia." Thomas nodded slowly. "I should have told you myself." "Yes, you should have," Robert agreed. "But your actions have spoken clearly about your intentions. You've been more of a father to Olivia these past months than I've been for years." The admission hung heavily in the air. "I'm not here to take Olivia away from the stability she's found with you," Robert continued, surprising them both. "I'm here to propose a different arrangement." He slid a document across the table, a custody agreement that would give Robert weekends with Olivia while maintaining her primary residence. with Thomas and Emma. More surprisingly, it included provisions for all three adults to participate in major decisions about Olivia's future. "I've accepted a position with the company's international division," Robert explained. "It requires travel, but with a more predictable schedule. I want to rebuild my relationship with my daughter, but I won't uproot her again when she's finally thriving." Emma reached for Thomas's hand under the table, squeezing it as the implications became clear. "You're proposing a co-parenting arrangement?" Thomas clarified. Robert nodded. "Catherine would have wanted us to put Olivia first. This way, she keeps the stability you've provided while also knowing her father is committed to being in her life consistently." The unexpected proposal led to a careful conversation with Olivia, who initially regarded her father with wariness born from disappointment. "You chose Diane over me," she said bluntly, when the adults explained the potential arrangement. Robert flinched, but didn't deny it. "I made a terrible mistake, Olivia. I was trying to hold together something that wasn't working, and I hurt you in the process. I can't undo that, but I can promise to make different choices going forward." Gradually, over Sunday dinners and weekend outings, Robert began rebuilding trust with his daughter. He attended her art exhibitions, asked questions about her techniques, and kept his promises about when he would call or visit. Meanwhile, Thomas finally asked Emma the question that had been on his mind for months. On a warm evening in the garden behind his home, now their home, he knelt beside the bench where she sat. "I've spent most of my life chasing success," he said, taking her hands in his. "It took meeting you to understand what true success looks like, creating a family built on love and respect. Will you marry me, Emma?" Her joyful acceptance was followed by an unexpected voice from the doorway. "Does this mean you'll officially be my stepmom?" Olivia asked, her expression hopeful rather than guarded. Emma opened her arms and Olivia rushed into them. "If that's what you'd like," Emma replied carefully. "But I'd never try to replace your mother." "Mom would have liked you," Olivia said with certainty. "You see people the way she did." The wedding took place the following autumn. A small ceremony in the same park Olivia had painted in her award-winning watercolor. Robert attended with genuine well-wishes, bringing Olivia's maternal grandmother, who had been estranged from Robert during his marriage to Diane. As seasons changed and years passed, the unconventional family arrangement strengthened rather than diminished. Robert eventually met someone new, a kind-hearted librarian who appreciated his daughter's artistic talent and respected the co-parenting. Dynamic without jealousy, Thomas and Emma expanded the Harrington Young Artists program into a full foundation, supporting creative education for underprivileged children. Their home became a gathering place not just for Olivia, but for young artists seeking mentorship and encouragement. On Olivia's 16th birthday, Thomas presented her with a carefully preserved collection of her mother's artwork and letters, including those she had exchanged with Thomas during their college years. Together, they established a scholarship in Catherine's name for young artists facing medical hardships. "Family isn't always what you're born into," Thomas told Olivia as they stood before her mother's self-portrait, now hanging in the city's Contemporary Art Museum as part of a retrospective exhibition. "Sometimes it's what you build after life breaks your heart open." Olivia, taller now and beginning to resemble her mother more with each passing year, smiled with the wisdom of someone who had experienced both rejection and unconditional love. "I think that's when the light gets in," she said, echoing her mother's favorite expression about art, how the most beautiful illumination often emerged from the darkest shadows. In the gallery's soft lighting, surrounded by the people who had chosen to love her, Olivia realized that her mother had been right. The cracks and broken places in her life's canvas hadn't destroyed the picture. They had created space for new colors, unexpected patterns, and ultimately, a masterpiece more beautiful than anyone could have imagined.